Consider This, a news and information program recorded on the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha. From the Fireside Lounge in the Milo Bale Student Center, here is your host, Carol Schrader.
Hello and welcome back to Consider This. It's my great pleasure to introduce to you the new police chief of the city of Omaha. Now, I have known many of them, but I haven't known them when they came into office as long as I have known Thomas Warren. He has now had I gave him 3 months to let the dust settle, but it never settles in that job, does it?
That's correct.
Well, welcome to Consider This. It's no secret that you are the first African-American, let's just get this off the bat, the first African-American police chief. That is an honor, but it's something you probably feel uncomfortable hearing all the time. Am I right or wrong? Not
really. Obviously, I'm very conscientious, and I realize the social significance of this appointment. I'm a very proud African-American male, and law enforcement is my chosen vocation. I've been in this business for 20 years, so I have a perspective that it somewhat goes with the job. It goes with the territory. Being a native of Omaha, it does give me somewhat of an advantage, being familiar with the issues, being homegrown or coming up through the ranks of the Omaha Police Department. I'm familiar not only with the workforce, but the relationships that I have with the staff, the relationships that I've established over the years within the community. I use them to my benefit as I perform my job.
And it's something everyone does. They use their experiences and their environment and all the tools they pick up all the way along. Most recently, before you were chief, you were captain of the Northeast Precinct. And one of the things most noteworthy about you, even before you were up for chief, I mean, that people talked about was the fact that you had helped resurrect the Police Athletic League, and that you were very, very, very good at bringing all the constituencies together. Now, this is part of community policing, and this has been going on in Omaha in different spurts throughout the city. But this is really something you've done, and you're really high on this.
Sure, and I'll try to address both the questions. During my tenure as commander of the Northeast Precinct, it was very important for me to try to implement many of the community policing initiatives. We had projects, we had programs, but we never really had an opportunity to have a systematic approach to community policing. One of the things that we wanted to establish were priorities in how we would direct our resources. We identified reducing gun violence, reducing gang activity and drug distribution as our top priorities, our goals and objectives, while at the same time trying to improve police-community relations. Now,
any one of those in and of themselves might be.
So that was a challenge, but you know, these goals and these objectives are not mutually exclusive. And one of the things that we did early on was reconnect with the residents in the Northeast Precinct and reestablish those relationships with the neighborhood association groups, the law-abiding citizens. We have a precinct advisory committee, which is composed of residents, representatives from social service agencies, faith-based organizations, to bring those individuals on board in a decision-making process. And so community policing in a nutshell is law enforcement working in partnership with the community to identify problems and to develop solutions. And so we brought those individuals on board, explained to them what our goals were, explained to them what our objectives were, and explained to them what our strategies were. And of course, when you're dealing with gun violence, it's pretty serious. And we had a program, Project Safe Neighborhoods, that we were going to implement with regards to our efforts to reduce and suppress gun violence.
And that's in league with the national, it's a national program,
U.S.
attorneys
it's a national
across
initiative
the country.
At the Attorney General's office, John Ashcroft. It's a Bush administration initiative to reduce gun violence. We initiated a very aggressive ad campaign. Some of the ads featured Johnny Cochran, where he talks about in some instances where he can have a defendant or a client have charges dismissed for various types of offenses, but if they get caught possessing an illegal firearm, not even Johnny Cochran could get them off. And so we had a very aggressive ad campaign, hard time for gun crime.
Right.
There were billboards, there were PSAs, and this was the warning, this was the deterrent that we would be aggressively investigating those offenses that involved illegal firearms. The strategy with Project Safe Neighborhoods is for those offenders who had prior felony convictions or drug convictions, if they were caught with an illegal firearm. For example, if those charges were filed in state court in Douglas County, you could be looking at 60 days, 90 days, maybe 6 months.
But if you took them to federal court?
In federal court, due to federal sentencing guidelines, there's a mandatory minimum of 5 years in prison without parole. And so we would not indiscriminately target individuals. We identified those hardcore chronic offenders, and we would aggressively investigate those cases. And we had a tremendous amount of cooperation from the United States Attorney's Office here in the District of Nebraska, Mike Havikin. They were vigorously prosecuting those cases, and due to the sentencing guidelines, there were some very severe sanctions handed down for those offenders, those chronic offenders.
Then when that actually happens, first you put the billboards up, you create the awareness, but when it really happens, is it having an effect? Did people in the community, whether it be Southwest Omaha or where you were working in Northeast Omaha, did they talk about that?
I can certainly speak in terms of the effect that it had in Northeast Omaha. We had a couple of areas that had experienced an inordinate amount of gun violence. We were getting complaints. People were absolutely fed up with the conduct that was taking place in their neighborhoods. And so we were responding to those complaints. We put in place several investigations, long-term investigations, narcotics investigations, and it resulted in over 100 individuals have been subjected to federal prosecution within the last year, and many of these are chronic offenders. The result effect has been a reduction in gun violence. We've had a reduction in the percentage of shots fired, calls for service. We've had a reduction in certain areas of the felony assaults that would occur, or the gang-related types of offenses, the drive-by shootings. And each of these shots fired, calls for service, they could represent a homicide, they could represent a felony assault, they can represent destruction of property of an occupied dwelling. And so we wanted to target those specific offenses with this strategy. So we brought the residents on board. We explained to them exactly what we were going to do. We got their buy-in and we got their support. And so the result effect being that there has been a reduction in crime. As far as the law-abiding citizen is concerned, there are advocates now. And so it worked hand in hand in terms of improving police-community relations.
That was a net effect of
Absolutely.
doing it this way. The Operation Safe Neighborhoods calls to mind that there has been, in your time on the force, a big difference in issues of turf. You know, I know they'd always play it up in the movies. You know, the feds didn't want the locals in, and the locals didn't want the feds in. But in your tenure as an Omaha police officer, things have really, because of crime, because of guns, because of drugs, of serious things that make people fearful in their own communities, turf battles are disappearing, are they not?
Well, we've experienced unprecedented cooperation, Carol, not only within the Omaha Police Department, in terms of how we exchange information in the Criminal Investigations Bureau, for that matter. Our homicide detectives are talking to our narcotics investigators. Our narcotics investigators are talking to the gang suppression unit. And so there's a constant exchange of intelligence information. We have
so even those inside turf
Absolutely.
battles are...
And then, of course, we have cooperation from the county attorney's office. We have monthly meetings with representatives from each of these investigative units, along with the county attorney, along with the United States Attorney's Office. I mean, the prosecutors who are actually handling these cases, we sit out on a monthly basis and exchange information, and we provide updates on the status of these ongoing investigations. As a precinct commander, it was important for me to sit in on those meetings, because oftentimes the uniform patrol function was left out of the discussions. And so this also gave us an opportunity to disseminate that information to the patrol officers, because who's most likely to encounter these individuals is those uniform patrol officers. So it was very beneficial for us to have that mechanism to exchange intelligence information.
Police now are, you never totally get ahead of the curve, but proactive is a word I hear a lot more than the reality of the past, which was more reactive. As chief, obviously that's going to, a major concern. You have plenty of other ones: manpower, equipment, tight budgets. But what, as police chief now, do you see as your greatest sort of philosophical problem, or the thing you want to do most from a more philosophical point of view?
Well, you talk about community policing. Our strategy is comprehensive. There's a prevention component, there's an intervention component, and then there's an enforcement component. I described one of the enforcement components, or strategic enforcement component, that we have with Project Safe Neighborhoods. All these elements compose a very comprehensive strategy of community policing. And so when you talk about philosophy, community policing is a philosophy. It's not necessarily a program, but it does represent a departure from traditional policing, in the sense that law enforcement, being a paramilitary
Structure,
structure, and of course police departments or paramilitary organizations, there's a hierarchy where the decisions, at least traditionally, had always been made at the top and then would filter down. Well, with community policing, it decentralizes the decision-making process. And as it applies to the uniform patrol function, here in the city of Omaha, we have 4 precincts: northeast, southeast, southwest, and northwest. And these 4 quadrants or sectors are commanded by a captain. Community policing represents a decentralization of the decision-making process, in that uniform patrol captain, that precinct commander, has a tremendous amount of autonomy over the decision-making process and the strategy development for their particular area. And by that, I mean they customize the strategy. The Northeast Precinct Commander may identify certain priorities that they want to address strategically for enforcement purposes. And it may not be the same in the Southeast Precinct.
Absolutely.
And so you tailor your strategy and you customize it based on the problems that that particular sector may be experiencing. And so that represents somewhat of a departure from traditional policing, in a sense that all the decisions were made at the top. And
This is all wrong, and this is the total panacea.
Absolutely.
It doesn't fit every neighborhood of Omaha is different, has a different feel, why wouldn't crime be a little different? Or where there's schools, high schools, where there's, different groupings of people, there's going to be unique problems.
And that's
Not to
it.
pick on the high schools.
It gives that precinct commander the flexibility. And of course, you want to deploy your resources where you need them the most. And there are certain problems that are indigenous to a geographic area. And so community policing enables that precinct commander to deploy their resources if it's gun violence that they're dealing with, or if it's quality of life types of issues that they're dealing with. Then they have the authority to dictate how they'll deploy their resources, and you deploy them where you need them the most.
So they have the freedom to do some
Absolutely.
prioritizing of how do you, because manpower, person power, and human resources are finite things, and they're becoming more finite.
And so you have to
in a
manage those
sense.
resources efficiently, and it does enable precinct commanders to identify those priorities, and then they're held accountable to manage those resources effectively.
The fire department and the police department, the 2 major branches of public safety in Omaha, are about to go through basically a ton of retirements. And the experience, because of the restructuring of the retirement system for the officers in both branches, so we're going to have a younger police force, a less experienced police force. Does that concern you? Is there some learning curves that maybe?
Well, I see it as a challenge, and I see it as an opportunity.
Right. Bring them up on
just-
the good stuff.
Sure. And then just to kind of explain what occurred, we have an enhanced pension package and it lowered the minimum age to collect a full pension to age 45, and the minimum years of service 25 for 69% of your gross salary as a pension benefit.
And any actuarial insurance person will tell you that 25 years on a police force takes its toll. For those that
right, and
that,
so I mean there were
that's
reasons
just a piece of
there were
cake.
reasons why
Yeah.
the changes were made, but certainly it gave those individuals who had reached the minimum eligibility requirements to attain a full pension incentive to retire. And so we anticipated that we would have quite a bit of turnover. Last year we experienced 70 separations, and that's about double what we would experience in an average year, 54 retirements. And so we can anticipate, we projected that we would lose quite a few people toward the end of the year. We didn't anticipate quite that many, but certainly as we projected attrition, we recognized that there would be a number of opportunities for promotion. We would have to fill those specialty positions where we had senior officers with a considerable amount of experience and expertise, as well as their opportunities for employment. And so we've hired. We just started a recruit class January 5th of 35 recruits. And I've had the good fortune of being able to promote 23 people in a very short period of time. And it's rare that as a new police chief, you have an opportunity to handpick your command staff. And so I've had the luxury of being able to appoint 2 deputy chiefs, 3 captains, 3 lieutenants, as well as several sergeants. And going through the interview process and of course being familiar with the workforce, I know the type of talent that we have. I know their strengths, I know their weaknesses, and it's given me the opportunity to appoint these individuals who share the vision. And I'm very confident that we have capable and competent individuals in those positions. I'm really looking forward to leading this department because you have the enthusiasm, you have the energy. Granted, we lost a lot of experience and a lot of expertise, but I'm pretty confident that we'll be able to replace those individuals with very capable people.
And you lost a little bit of, and this is no reflection on some of the ones that retired that had been on the longest, but things have changed in the police department. There, affirmative action, sexual harassment training. I mean, a more sensitive workforce all across the country, I hope, not just in policing, and also this community policing. And so you have a chance to sort of, this is a kind of paternalistic, but raise the kids, the way you want. I don't mean it as their children, but you know what I mean?
That opportunity to manage, you take advantage of that opportunity to mentor, and you take advantage of that opportunity to lead. As I mentioned, with the fact that we've had to replace so many managers and we had an opportunity to replace so many supervisors. I like to think that we're a very progressive police department. We have very high standards of professionalism. When we evaluate these candidates for appointment, we look at their job performance. We want people who not only can lead but have had a history of making contributions to the agency and have demonstrated that ability in the past. And by going through the process, just the interview process, I'm encouraged. I had an opportunity while in the Northeast Precinct to lead some very hard-working police officers. These are probably the hardest-working police officers I've ever been associated with, and just extremely proud of their work ethic, just extremely proud of their dedication, and the fact that they took the proper approach to the job, which is serving the public. And so I'm pretty optimistic in terms of the future of the Omaha Police Department.
It's no secret that the African American community in Omaha and in many communities across the country have felt distrust of the police departments, which were traditionally, if you go back and some of the people that have been around for a long time, let's say on Omaha's north side that I've known since I was young, that have been around, they have seen a lot happen. They have seen an almost all-white police force. not understand them, and they don't understand the police, and so a lot of distrust. And of course, we've had shootings, the George Bibbins case that created a lot of bad feeling in the black community. That makes the African American police chief, puts you in a unique situation. I don't mean bad one or a good one, but puts you in a unique situation to maybe help this a little bit or not.
Well, I could tell you that, based on my past experience as commander of the Northeast Precinct, I recognize that there are certain expectations, but I'm very realistic, and I take a practical approach to doing my job. One of the things that we wanted to establish was open lines of communication, and to be responsive, and even when subject to criticism, would have honest and candid discussions in terms of why we do what we do. I see police community relations on a continuum, and there's always room for improvement, but our hope is that we will continue to make progress in the right direction. There's always going to be bumps in the road. There's always going to be obstacles, but I'm an optimist, and we will strive to work toward resolution, whatever that conflict may be.
Civil discourse is really important in that I'm sure when you worked in the Northeast Precinct and there were a lot of fear in the community when the use of guns goes up, and not feeling safe in your own house sometimes, as we saw with many of the news stories, and bullets going right into people's homes. And so there's a lot of emotion involved in serious cases and crime sprees and fear of crime. But you are a person of civil discourse, and you have always brought a sense of kind of calm to the situations I've seen you in. Is that one of your strengths, do you think?
Well, I try to maintain a even keel, per se. Certainly, I know some of the issues can evoke emotion.
Even feel inflammatory to some people.
Certainly, and I've always felt that it was important that I maintain a proper demeanor. I hope to bring some stability to those situations where emotions can be enraged, but for the most part, I think it's just my temperament. I mean, the one thing, I've participated in competitive athletics my entire life, and we were always coached and trained to maintain your composure. And so I think that may be one of my strengths, but it comes from all those years of participating in sports.
When you go to bed at night, I mean, I don't know when you muse the things you'd like to do in your life with your family or your job, but let's just picture a scenario here. When you kind of, at night, and you think of something, if you could do it tomorrow, what would it be?
Well, I look back. I mean, I reflect a lot. I tend to take things day to day, but at the end of the night, I try to reflect on what occurred that previous day, and you ask yourself, did you make a contribution? Did you do something productive in that particular day? And so I tend to analyze what occurred, and certainly have some foresight in terms of what you would like to accomplish maybe in the immediate near future, but I tend to take things step by step. And certainly this job, being a police officer, you can derive a tremendous amount of satisfaction by helping and then by making a contribution to either making the community safer, making the city of Omaha a better place to live, helping someone out. And so, I just kind of keep things in that perspective.
Okay, let me get around this another way. You did a really good job of dodging that one. No, nothing to apologize for. Okay, it's no secret that the City of Omaha's police department over the last 10, 12 years has had, not replaced cruisers. They've dropped back the replacement level. At one point, I was afraid every cruiser was going to fall apart when it drove down the street, just about. But we've had tight budget times too, so we have to put off things. What, in terms of that, if you had some money tomorrow, what would you do?
Well, again, Carol, I'm realistic. I live within.
But you have a wish list. Come on.
We live within our means,
right?
And certainly,
the taxpayers appreciate that.
During tight fiscal. We're in a period right now where we had to make some very, very serious decisions with regards to personnel. With the mandates that we were dictated in terms of once we received our appropriation, there was a strong possibility of layoffs. Many city departments did experience layoffs, and we were fortunate at the police department that we didn't necessarily incur layoffs. However, we have a number of vacancies, and so we won't fill those vacancies. We were able to achieve our mandate through attrition. Of course, so much of our budget is tied to personnel.
It's like 95% plus,
exactly.
I think. Just about.
And so, from that perspective, you would like to be able to fill those vacancies. Now, those positions haven't been eliminated. We just won't fill the vacancies, and
So
we'll
a nice
achieve
full and adequate complement would be.
that would be nice.
Okay, one final question. The Office of Police Auditor, which is now being funded by public and private grants, has been traditionally the rank and file in the police department, and even some of the police chiefs have thought it was a bunch of hooey. Many of the people in the minority community and other minority communities that maybe sometimes have distrust of the police have been in favor of it. Where do you stand on it?
Well, I have a very good relationship with the police auditor. I met Tristan. I've worked with Tristan.
Tristan Bond.
Tristan Bond during my previous tenure as commander of the Northeast Precinct. We sit down and we meet and we discuss issues on a regular
Does the
basis.
position have value?
Anything that can enhance accountability has value. And in terms of even the public's perception that we have checks and balances, because police services are scrutinized. And of course, if there's any mistrust or distrust, if there are any allegations of police misconduct, if there's any perception that these investigations are not being conducted thoroughly or objectively, then the position of public safety auditor can restore some of that accountability. So in that sense, sure, it has a function.
And I just should point out, you're married. You have how many children?
I'm happily married, 18 years plus. We have 3 beautiful children. My daughter, Jessica, 16. She's a junior at Marion. I have a son, Thomas Jr., who attends North High. He's a freshman, and Alexandra, who's a 7th grader at Morton.
Always wanted to be able to get the family
Thank you.
in. Thank you
I
for joining
appreciate
us, Chief Warren. Come back in a couple years, okay?
To view this edition of Consider This or past programs, visit our website at unotv.unomaha.edu. For comments or questions, call 402-554-2516 during regular business hours. Consider This is a production of UNO Television.